Everybody, how's it going? Open office hours. Um, this is a time for anybody watching the stream to be able to post questions, talk about random topics, whether it is relating to MassDriver, to our industry, technologies, things like that. It's just kind of a spot for everybody to hang out and chat. So if you guys have any questions, any topics that you want to discuss, go ahead and post them in the chat, and we'll get a conversation going. Our CEO, Corey O'Daniel, should be joining us sometime today. And yeah, he'll be available to discuss anything that you guys want. Let's see. So we did just attend KubeCon in Paris, which was pretty awesome. If anybody attended KubeCon, let us know in the chat if you were there and what you saw, what you liked. There was definitely a larger turnout, I think, than we expected. We were definitely a bit busier than we were expecting. 90%, 95% of the people that we spoke to were platform engineers, which is kind of insane because a large chunk of them were just like, I'm a platform engineer, but I really just do DevOps. Like I was promoted to platform engineer, but I just do the same job that I've been doing, which is, it's kind of wild. So that was interesting. That was a good bit of information about like where our industry is at as far as adoption of platform engineering, and realistically how painful that is, how painful that looks. Yeah, if you guys are trying to build your own platform in-house or are using a platform engineering tool, available on the market. Let me know. Let me know what you're using, what you're trying to build. I'd be very curious to know how your experience has been. Some people in as well. I'm going to pull that up here on the side. Got 6 people. Just repost this to make it. So yeah, what kind of tools are you guys working in? Platforms, building platform in-house, still doing traditional DevOps, kind of like puddling through that, using some type of SaaS offering, some type of orchestrated Kubernetes type of platform. What you guys are curious. And we'll wait for some comments. So KubeCon in Paris was quite busy. We saw a lot of interesting booths there. Our CEO Corey is supposed to be joining us. He'll be here in just a moment. My audio sounds weird. Interesting. Let me go ahead and test my audio before I get into that story. Okay, sounds good now. All right. So Corey gave a talk at the GitHub booth about an open source tool that we are in the process of building that is going to be helping with packaging infrastructure. If anybody's interested in that, I can go and talk more about that tool that we're building. For anybody that's joining us, office hours is a time to join the stream and just hang out, chat, ask questions, whether you have questions about Massdriver, questions about DevOps, platform engineering, technologies, the industry, the market, any and all of that in general. Just go ahead and post in the chat. We'll talk about it. We'll answer questions. This is an opportunity to get like a live person discussing the topics that you guys want to talk about. And if you're unfamiliar with who I am, but you're familiar with Massdriver, so I'm a cloud solutions architect for Massdriver. I work on the the sales orchestration team, where I essentially guide companies through the adoption process of a platform. Being the, I guess, expertise on how to build out a proper platform that meets your company's needs and requirements, making sure that process goes as smooth as possible. Because in reality, building out a platform for your company looks totally different than another company building out their own platform. They have different needs, they have different requirements, they have different systems and infrastructure components and all these other things. They have different expertise, they have different talent. So that whole process is very unique. And so my role at Massdriver helps guide these companies with that process to make it easier and not so many words. So that's a little bit about me. So yeah, what kind of platforms, what kind of tooling are you guys working on right now? If anybody wants to post a comment about, if you guys are trying to build out your own IDP, what that looks like, how your developers are liking it, how your developers are influencing that decision, whether they have feedback, whether they have no say. I'd really like to learn more about how companies are approaching solving this problem and the different decisions, the different micro decisions that they make with the adoption of a new tool, such as a platform that enables developer self-service. Because ultimately that's where industry is going. Because DevOps is miserable and it's frustrating. It's cool, and there's lots of cool technologies out there. There's lots of cool tools. It's a fun role if there wasn't the insane levels of stress and buildup of tickets and stuff like that on top of it, because the ratio of DevOps to developers is so small. But yeah, the industry right now, it needs a shift. So yeah, for anybody that's just joining us, just to recap, office hours is a time for our community, for random people on Twitter, LinkedIn, wherever you are, wherever you come from, to be able to ask questions about Massdriver, about different technologies, the industry, DevOps, platform engineering, all of those kind of things. It's just a hangout time to really discuss what you want to discuss, and we can go as deep as you want from there. So feel free to post any questions, comments, anything like that, and we will address them and we'll talk about them. We'll answer them. Hey, Corey. You can come hang out.
Hey. Sorry,
what's up?
apologize. This is a virtual background. I'm not really
Sure.
in a really sunny place under an umbrella.
It looks really nice out there, actually.
Oh, it's not too shabby. I'm gonna get a hamburger after this and then go meet up with one of our advisors in a bit. So had to head to beach cities today. It's terrible.
That
How you
barbecue
doing?
we had yesterday was pretty good.
That was pretty good barbecue.
I was surprised for a chain.
I liked it. I didn't know it was a chain.
Yeah, I learned yesterday morning that was a chain. It's actually like 6 Phil's barbecues. Shout out to Phil's Barbecue. They're pretty good. So I was just talking about KubeCon earlier and how we were at KubeCon, and what we saw, what we learned, the different booths. Talked about, you gave a talk at the GitHub booth.
I did.
You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So we're in the process of open sourcing like the core packaging component of Massdriver. So I think the goal is to get like the V0 or V0.0.1 out around the beginning of May. But kind of at the heart of Massdriver is this like bundling and packaging concept. So you see this a little bit when you use our CLI today, or would you work on like extending the platform today if you're using like Terraform or Helm or anything to kind of add functionality to the platform. But that bundling component, we're actually going to pull out, make that open source. And what it allows you to do as effectively as an operator, a DevOps engineer, is you can take effectively all of your IAC tooling and all of its associated tooling, like maybe you're running InfraCost for figuring out costs and budgeting, and maybe you're running something like Checkov to do policies. Effectively, you'll be able to take this packaging tool, run, we don't know what the name of it's going to be yet. We're still trying to figure out branding, but just essentially like mass package, mass bundle, and it will produce like a single deliverable, which effectively kind of looks like a Docker layer. And then to your engineers, like they don't have to install any of your tooling. They don't have to learn Terraform. They don't have to learn Chekhov. They don't have to copy a bunch of stuff in their CI pipelines. To them, they just get this thing that's maybe called billing database. And it is a thing that they can execute that will provision the equivalent of your billing database, like whatever that is. Maybe it's AWS Aurora, maybe it's an EC2 instance running Postgres with some replicas. But it lets you kind of dry up that delivery pipeline and all of the continuous integration stuff that you're running around your IAC into a single thing, and then developers can just execute it. So we're going to be open sourcing that. That's what we got to talk about it at GitHub. Apparently, somebody saw the demo at we did a demo. Yeah. No, what was it? Codebeam. Somebody saw it at Codebeam, knew somebody at GitHub, told somebody at GitHub, somebody at GitHub reached out to us. So it was kind of cool to see that little like network effect happen. But it's going to be really cool to see that out there. I feel like on the DevOps side of the world, like we have so much tooling that we have to care about to get good infrastructure in place. And that to me has always been one of those like kind of sloppy handoff spots when you're working with like your engineering partners, right? It's like, how much of my tooling should you learn to be able to get what you need, right? And so you see a lot of companies when they're trying to get to this point of self-service, it's like self-service starts to become, well, engineers need to learn my tools, right? And like I don't know, engineers only got 40 hours a week, right? They got to build business value. So like if we can get them that same functionality without having somebody have to stop to learn Terraform, stop to learn a cloud service, stop to learn alerting, stop to learn monitoring, like stop to learn security and compliance, and just like get the thing they need and go. I think that's going to be a pretty nice experience. And like, it allows you to kind of do self-serve how you want. Like if you want to use a platform like ours to like host and run these packages that come out of our packager, great. If you want to run it through GitHub Actions, like that's fine too. And that's kind of what our demo is just like running it through like a regular CI system.
Yeah. No, it's incredible. Like, I mean, we've all talked about this like internally quite a bit now, the capabilities that's going to come out from it. And it's not just going to benefit like the larger companies that are running their own IAC that they're going to be able to package up together and stuff like that. But the eventual goal is, right, to like have some type of public marketplace where you can push these infrastructure package bundles up, kind of like, Docker Hub public repositories, where you can see like how people are commenting and starring and using the packages to be able to pull straight from public repos. Maybe if you're a startup, you don't have a lot of IAC or you don't have any IAC, but you need to have, like you said, a billing database. That's what you can search for. You can see what's being most used or what people are talking about, what people like about certain packages, be able to pull them, run them, and now you have a fully fledged CI system, IAC, production grade, ready to go, and you didn't really have to learn a bunch of the IAC to do that.
Yeah, like one of the wild things about it is like it's so funny. Like it feels like and I can show the prototype here if people are interested in seeing that. But it's funny because like when we first started playing with like the idea of pulling it out of like our core platform, and it was Kelsey's idea. So Kelsey Hightower is one of our advisors. He was on a call with us and we were talking about go to market, and he just had this like mind blown moment where he asked us like how the core of the platform works, and we were walking through it, and he's like, "This sounds like Docker for infrastructure as code." And we were all like, none of us really. I mean, like it's just this like it's this implementation detail of like how Massdriver works. Like we never really like thought about it. You know what I mean? Like, but it's funny. Like now that I'm playing with it, it's like the least exciting things about it are the most exciting things, right? So like one of the things you can do with it, right? So if you think about like the average experience, if you've got a really well, I guess a very mature DevOps like practice, right? Let's say you've got your infrastructure as code modules, whether they're Terraform or whatever, in a GitHub repo, right? And now you have some engineers that need to manage cloud infrastructure. Like, what do they do, right? Like this is a part of the DevOps process, is like figuring out how your process works and like figuring out, right? So like there's a couple of options there. Like the engineers can either copy those modules and like own the code like in their own repos, or they can like reference those modules like from their root modules, right? But what almost immediately happens in those scenarios is you get the Terraform, But then there's like this other stuff, right? It's like, okay, well, I gotta run the Terraform. Like I've actually seen people struggle with this. They're like, oh, I can just reference that Postgres module that the ops team wrote in our Terraform repository. Great, I'll just reference that. And then they're like, it didn't make the database. And it's like, well, yeah, you didn't copy the CI stuff that runs the Terraform, right? And so it's like now that person like thought that they're just going to get Postgres, and now they're starting to learn about, okay, I got to copy that, right? And then it's like, okay, well, a few months go by, and like Vanta's gone off, like something's out of compliance. And it's like, well, that person that copied the module and copied the CI pipeline didn't copy the checkoff step that like makes sure that we stay in compliance, right? So now we got to copy that step, right? And now we got to deal with the compliance issue, right? Which hopefully isn't a recreate issue. And so what's really cool with the tool is like, you don't think about any of that stuff. Like you just like, oh, I need Postgres. Like, and it brings the whole CI pipeline with it. The CI pipeline effectively is ephemeral, right? And what starts to be rad about that is like, if I, as the operator, DevOps team, compliance, like DevSecOps, like whatever crazy amount of titles you want to jam into that, if we're sitting around one day and we're like, hey, there's actually a policy that we missed, or maybe there's new regulations or something that we became aware of from like a security perspective, I make that change in one spot, like to my Terraform, to my checkoff config, whatever, package it and publish it. Now every single instance of this gets updated instantly. I don't have to go and, right? Like that's such a boring, miserable part of like DevOps is like when you make one of these small changes, like going and finding all the places where like the CI pipeline's been copied, the Terraform's been copied, what version of Terraform, what version of checkoff, which version of my policies. Like it's just tedious work. And now you actually have like a central place you can go back to. You're like, okay, I'm just going to update this. And every single instance of it not only gets like the updated Terraform, the updated Terraform version, but any changes to your policies, etc. Like, and that person doesn't have to do a thing that's using it. To them, it's just this thing that makes billing database, whatever, right? So I'm gonna do some screen magic here in a second, and I can do a little screen share.
Yeah, let's see a demo.
Yeah, I'm actually on. I'm purposely stalling because I ran brew update earlier, and so anybody who's on a Mac knows how miserable that is. I made that mistake, so I'm updating like 7,000 packages right now.
9 years later.
9 years later, yeah, and through my phone too. I've got like 50K up from like blasting it on this video call. So it's like the slowest upgrade process in the world. Okay. Is there? Let me. I had a question. Is there like background music on this call, or is it the background music here that I'm hearing? No. Okay, it's on this call.
No, it's on the call, yeah.
Okay, I was like, okay, like they're pumping it.
I can blast it. I mean, there's lots of options here.
Go wild.
Non-DMCA.
I didn't know that we had background music options in this. This is awesome.
Yeah, in the brand tab. StreamYard is pretty cool. Shout out to StreamYard, who's hosting our stream here. They're pretty awesome.
Okay.
So yeah, while Corey's pulling that up, just a reminder, this is office hours. Hanging out, chatting about different things. Feel free to post in the comments with any questions that you guys might have, any topics that you want to talk about, whether they're related to Massdriver, platform engineering, DevOps, development, the market, the industry, technologies, whatever you guys want to talk about. This is a chance to like hang out with us, ask us things. Talk about whatever you want to talk about. So feel free to post in the comments and we'll talk about them. We'll hang out. This is office hours. We do it the first Wednesday of every month.
Okay, I might be ready for a little demo. I won't be able to see comments or questions while I'm doing it, so if anybody has any questions, will you relay that to me? Okay.
Yep, I'll be on
it. Okay, now, I know how to use a computer, but do I know how to share my screen? I do not know.
Yeah, if you do present share screen, it'll add it to the background, and then you just hover over it and click add to stage.
Boom. Is this it? You see ops and dev?
we'll add it to the stage. Yep.
Okay, cool. Not that I want to create a separation between ops and dev, but it's there.
It exists.
It exists, right? So I'll just LS this directory really quick. And so we can see is this is just a pretty standard Terraform module. You can see this is it's real janky, but this is essentially just installing. This is not production, guys. This is a demo. So just, people are like, oh my god, I know we're gonna this idiot. I'm gonna do a little. I'm gonna install XZ on here too while I'm at it. So this is me just setting up an AWS instance with Postgres, and then I'm installing a couple of extensions, and then. There's also, there's this checkoff config here, and then I've got my InfraCost config. So just a couple of tools that are kind of here. And so now what I can do with the Massdriver tool is, so let's like this right here it's our billing database. So this isn't our real billing database. Again, it's just a kind of demo. So what I'm doing is I'm saying I want to package all of this stuff up. I want to take this Terraform. You can see my mouse highlight, right?
Yeah.
I want to take this Terraform, these couple of config files here, and I want to make them this one thing that I'm going to ship off to my engineering partners. So I can run this this build command. You can see it's publishing this bundle, and it's done, right? So this is now packaged up. Now from the developer side, I can run this MD list. And what it's going to do is effectively give me like a service catalog of like what I'm allowed to manage. Right, and this is all currently done through like OCI. So you don't even need like a backend for this. Like you could technically just use like your local Docker host, or you could use like ECR. So if you're already like storing images someplace, like this just stores all of these like artifacts and configuration and whatnot in that store, which is nice because you don't have to think about getting S3 for your state, or you don't have to think about where you're going to store different artifacts and whatnot. You can kind of keep everything close to your Docker images. So that's what we just use by default. So you can see here, there's essentially like 4, and I'll tell you, they're Terraform modules, but there's these 4 things that I can deploy in the cloud. These 4 like pieces of infrastructure that I can manage. But the cool thing is like I don't. Like right here, like I don't know that they're Terraform. To me, it's our billing database, and it's this Kubernetes cluster and this chat app. And then here's an example of like, this is, the demo accounts, org Acme. And then this is the actual like AWS Aurora public Terraform module. And so now what I can do is I can get info on this thing. And so you can see like, okay, it's an EC2 base. And so this is just like description stuff that I have control as the operator for setting. So I can provide some information to my developers who are going to be running this thing. And it tells you that, hey, it's essentially 3 tools. There's a Terraform layer, a checkoff layer, an InfraCost layer. And then this is one of these other like interesting concepts that we have, this concept of a preset. And so what these presets are, if you think about like how we configure infrastructure today, like there's stuff that the developer cares about, and then there's stuff that the operations person cares about. And you could say like, hey, they should all care about each other's configuration, but like, I don't know how scalable that is, right? Like, it's funny, like when you think about, it's like, this config is for the same resource, but there's really like a developer side to it, right? And like, here's a good example. This is Postgres. The developer cares that it's Postgres version 15. It's a feature set that they're using, right? But like, I as an ops person, like, I don't really care that it's 15. I care that there's no CVEs on it, right? And I would prefer that it is like the most patched version, but the major version to me as the operator does not matter, right? That is something that is purely dictated to me by my developers that have feature sets that they need to use, right? On the other side of this, there's stuff that my developers should not have to care about, right? Like your goal as a developer is to build some functionality, make the business some money, enjoy your time while you're doing it, and hopefully not getting woke up at 2 a.m., right? And so when you think about the rest of the configuration for Postgres, it's like, okay, high availability. Like, I don't know. I want my developers to know if something needs to be highly available or not, but I don't want them having to think through like zone strategies. I don't want them to have to think through, security groups. I don't want them to have to think through like replication. Like I want them to think about what they need and get going, right? So this concept of presets, the easiest way to think about it is imagine you have like a configuration file, it could be a JSON file. And the underlying thing here again is Terraform. And what this allows you to do is say, there's some part of this that is dictated by the operations person, and then there's some part that is going to be configurable by the developer. And you can pick from one of these presets. And so in this example here, I'm going to apply. And so what you see is like this tool kind of has like a mix of like Terraform and Docker's interface. You see I'm pushing and pulling over here, and then I'm applying and destroying. And so I want to apply this bundle. I'm going to give this bundle a name. So like it's actually going to have like an instance name that this specific instance that I'm executing. And then I'm giving it a preset, production. And then my config, db.json. And then this db.json, I'm just setting like the username and password. But what happens here is there's a subset of this config that I can't directly access as a developer. I can't change zonal configuration. The options I have is saying I have a production or a development preset. Right. And so this allows me to say, hey, I want something that feels like production, but I actually don't care how any of that works. And as the operator, I can extend this functionality to you without worrying about a developer, you know, let's say that our high availability requirements say we only need like, maybe we need a couple of replicas that scale up and down, but we only need 2 zones. Like we're not worried, like we're not a healthcare company. We're not, you know, we're not an airline. Like if 2 zones go down and somebody can't buy shirts, like that's fine, right? Yeah. But as a developer, when you're like trying to figure out like, oh, like I'm trying to make this thing highly available, and you're reading through like the white paper that is configuring Aurora or RDS, you might think, oh, well, there's 4 zones in US West 2. I need to be in all 4 of them. It's like, well, you probably don't, right? Like that's that, like, right. That uptime is an ops concern, right? And like you might be doing more work, creating more cloud costs for a constraint that's not there in the business. And so this lets me as the operations person say like, here, our constraints for like high availability are packaged into this. You can't change them. You can pick to have some burstable instances with no replicas, or you can have something highly available with replicas. And so now as a developer, I can just say, great, give me production, and here's my config to like put some additional configuration on there. This is just setting the username and password. See, it runs Terraform plan, it runs checkoff, infra cost, Terraform apply, and it even generated an artifact and like stored the security credentials for this Postgres instance. So this is cool. Like I just deployed something with all of this pipeline. I've copied nothing. I didn't copy Terraform. I didn't make a main TF file and have to reference Terraform. I didn't copy any CI pipelines. I didn't copy any bash scripts. I literally just executed this thing. And it's able to do all this stuff the way my operations team has kind of dictated how it should work. And then the other problem, like as an ops team, is like, let's do instances. Geez, I'm trying to remember the command here. Oh, this is the beta tool, so hopefully I didn't mess this up. There, oh, I did it. Yay, me. So the other thing that sucks is like when somebody starts using your Terraform, right? And like, let's say that you have built a really good RDS module for Postgres, but you're a company that has 100 microservices and you have 100 Postgres databases. Okay. Did engineers copy that Terraform? Did they reference it? When did they reference it? When was the last time they applied it? Does it have the policies? I don't know. Does it have our most up-to-date checkoff policies? I don't know. And so the other thing this tool allows you to do is get a list of the instances of this IAC bundle right now. So I can see there's actually 4 versions of it that are deployed. There's a staging version that was deployed a while ago. You can see this Acme version Acme prod version I just deployed. And then there's 2 like essentially ephemeral environments that have been running for probably a long time that I should tear down. But we got those AWS credits, so who cares? But these 2 ephemeral environments I should probably tear down. But like now I, as an ops person, can actually see like how many instances of my module are actually being used right now. And then I can even do stuff like MD inventory, and I can see the actual underlying cloud resources, right? So like you got this full circle now. Like I, as the operations person, can confidently let you self-serve at the abstraction that you need, right? And that's dictated by like the ops team. I can say like, hey, maybe I want to let my team pick how many zones they can be in, right? Like that's really up to the operations and reliability team to kind of decide. But now I can package up all this stuff. I can ship it to my engineers in a concept that makes sense to them, that gives them like enough granularity that they can feel like they actually have self-service, right? It's not just like a facade of self-service, or it's not me shifting a bunch of work onto you for you to get what you need. Like I can determine like the right level of abstraction between my 2 teams, like the right like how malleable I want this layer that's kind of between dev and ops. I can give it to them, and then I can also understand like what they're doing with it, right? Because that's the thing that's, I feel like two things are truly terrifying about the idea of self-service to an operations team, right? Like while we've torn down the walls of, you know, dev and ops, like my job is still to make sure systems are reliable, right? And every time you introduce change, you introduce the ability for them to become unreliable, right? And so to be able to know like who's using this, like what resources are being created, and that I'm giving you this power with guardrails on it, like that solves a lot of the problems for me. And what's cool is like if I want to say, hey, like I want to change, you know, maybe I want to change what extensions are in our Postgres instances for our billing database, or I want to change like maybe I want to add like security groups here. I can do this, or maybe I want to change the version of Terraform, right? What's cool is I can do this in this one place, and then I can just republish it. And now next time any of these 4 instances that we saw up here execute, they're going to get the newest version. It'll pull the newest version of Terraform. It'll pull the newest Terraform configuration, provision those resources appropriately. It'll pull the newest checkoff policies, the newest checkoff tool, like whatever I've packaged up at this point in time is what they're going to get and execute. And so I can come back in here and see like, okay, well, this team hasn't run this in 8 days. I know they don't have the newest version of this, right?
Right.
And we should probably even add like, you know, the version that you're running here. Like if you're doing latest, just like anything with Docker, like you're going to get the latest, but you could use your own like tagging strategies here as well, right? So yeah, that's what we're trying to like rip out of the heart of the beast of Massdriver right now. So it's looking pretty cool. And then if anybody's watching and thinks, hey, like I wish my ops team was using something like this, or if you're an ops or DevOps person and you're thinking, I wish I had something like this to help my engineers kind of self-serve faster. We are looking for people to beta test this before we officially open source it. So just, you know, ping me or Michael on the community Slack, or send me an email at Corey@massdriver.cloud, and we can add you to it. The only thing that we would ask is if we add you to the beta, you'll probably see some of our IP. So don't share that part until we get it all pulled out.
Yeah, that'd be the important part. But this is dude, that's super cool.
Yeah, I'm excited. It was I mean, I think it's one of those things, it's like I don't feel like we get a lot of tools in ops, but we spend a lot of time gluing those tools together, right? And like, so it's funny, it's like you can sit down with like any given tool and have like an interesting experience with it, right? Like there's so many tools out there. Like if you think about like the first time, anybody here, like the first time you used Heroku, you downloaded that CLI, or you just get pushed and you're like, holy shit, that worked, right? Like you got this full experience in like a single command, right? And I feel like on the ops side of the world, we don't ever get that. We get these nice little small experiences. Oh, I was able to Terraform a fly and like it made the thing, but like, did it work? Like, you know, is it secure? Like there's so much other questions that I now have like once this thing is done, right? And so that was what was really exciting about this, is like it gives you this like bigger experience as an ops person, where it's like I can actually take a bunch of tools and just glue it together, right? And I don't think we do a lot of work there in the ops space today to like make all this glue and tediousness easier for us to do. So like, while it doesn't seem like a super exciting tool on the surface when you talk about it, like when you actually see it work and you're like, holy shit, like all my stuff just got glued together and I didn't have to think about it. And now like my developers aren't playing with 1,000 tiny little 1x1 sharp Legos. They're playing with, you know, they're playing with a giant dinosaur.
Yeah.
Sorry, weird analogy. I've got children.
It was applicable.
Yeah, there you go.
No, it's super cool. Yeah, it's going to be, I mean, the feedback that we've gotten already has been very positive as far as the use cases for what that tool can solve. And you're right, like tools coming out nowadays, like, I mean, they're no offense to the developers, but they're all for the developers. They're made as shiny new toys for developers to play around with, and operations kind of get stuck with like, you can script whatever you need to do, and it's going to be janky, and probably ridden full of issues down the road, but knock yourself out. And so having
Yeah.
something that operations can play around with and use and essentially just makes their lives easier. Like, when was the last time a tool came out for operations that made their lives easier?
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that like, I mean, there's so many great tools like that are in our space, but it's like you once you like finish and use the tool, you're like, okay, and now what? Like right, because now it's like, okay, I like Argo. I'd say Argo is probably one of like my favorite tools that have come out in the past few years. Like that is a quality piece of software, but like once you, it's like, okay, I have to set up Kubernetes and then I have to install Argo, and then once it's there, it's like, okay, well now what? Now I got to get some developer stuff on it to like see how I feel. And like this is one of the first tools I've run in a while where like I was just like I ran it and I was like, wow, like I got something out of it as an ops person from this with like a single command. Like I got the ability to truly extend all of my expertise to any of my engineers. Like I'm able to just package up everything I know about, you know, running Postgres in production into this single thing. And I know that the people that are using it like are going to get what they want and not have to like cobble a bunch of YAML together and cobble some bash scripts in a YAML pipeline and not sit there and that's like, and now what moment, right? And like I feel like we don't get a lot of tools that come along like that in the ops space. Like we get a lot of like, oh, this is great, but like now what, right? And I feel like you see this all the time. Like the Fly CLI, like Fly Run is a dope experience, right? Heroku Push, like that's a dope experience. There's so many of these Vercel, you know, like there's these things where it's just like as a developer, it's like, oh, I'm there, like I can get right back to coding. And so many times in ops, it's like, okay, that worked. Now I have to figure out like what production system can I start running through Argo instead of Circle CI, right? Like, and so like, you're like, oh, let me find this next thing, and like so hard to get to that like point of delivery quickly with a lot of our tooling, just because it's the nature of the job, right?
Yeah, no, very much so. Yeah, no, I'm excited for it. I hope everybody else watching, we have like 25 people, I think, watching total. I hope they're going to be excited for it too. If you guys have any questions about the tool or about Massdriver, anything like that, feel free to post here. Corey and I are just hanging out, chatting, talking about KubeCon and things like that. If you guys have any questions or have any topics that you want us to talk to you about, just please post in the comments. You know, we don't bite. Speaking of KubeCon, so like that was a very small sect of KubeCon, right? It was like doing that talk at the GitHub booth. What else did you see that you liked at KubeCon?
Oh, you're asking me? Oh, I was about to ask you the same thing. I was like, I just talked for 20 minutes. But
okay, I mean, I can go next.
You go and then I'll go. Yeah, what was the coolest thing you saw?
The coolest thing that I saw at KubeCon was, you know, I'm not really. I saw Honeycomb at KubeCon. I mean, we saw them at reInvent, but it's always nice to see them again. We saw one of our competitors rebrand, do a total pivot to LLM. That was interesting.
That was interesting.
We saw, so at reInvent, we were like the only booth that had platform engineering, right? On our sort of our display, and then now like almost every booth in our section had platform engineering on it. Some had very controversial artwork, which is very interesting. No, I mean, like, I don't really find much of what anybody else was doing interesting, to be totally blunt. Like, I did not see anything that grabbed. Oh, Llama.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, like, I feel like this is going to be kind of a little bit of brutal honesty, but I feel like a lot of the booths, especially the ones that were around us, are trying to do the exact same thing under a different brand. Yeah,
I can see that. Like it's funny for me because like I don't know, I'm probably like I'm probably the worst CEO in the world here saying this, but like I love going and seeing like what our competitors and like tangential competitors are doing, and you know me. I mean, I'm buddies with like half of them.
Yeah.
But it is interesting. Like there is a lot of, I think what I saw one big trend, which is a concerning trend for me. I can talk about this a bit, but like there's a lot of like IDPs,
Yep.
and the P is a question mark. Is
Yeah.
it, is it an identity
Platform,
provider?
portal.
No. It's not an identity provider. It's the other two IDPs. So it's internal developer platform or internal developer portal, right?
Yeah.
And it's funny because like I feel like it's very much like DevOps, like where it's like one of these terms that like it had a meaning and like now it means nothing, right? I saw somebody today post on LinkedIn like nobody knows what DevOps means, and it's like, yeah, that's why it's bullshit. Like if nobody can agree on a term, like it's kind of fucked, right? And I feel like IDP is getting there as well. Like I will see people that are portals call themselves platforms that call themselves portals. I don't think anybody can really differentiate. Like there are definitions on like the IDP site, right? But like it's mishy mashy, right? And it's what's concerning to me is like I feel like I'm excited about platform engineering. I think one of the things that platform engineering has done is I think it's going to breathe life back into failed DevOps initiatives, and like that's my personal belief. Like I feel like what we messed up with in DevOps was we didn't like we tend to be people that are against marketing, right? We don't like marketing. We don't like being marketed to, right? And I think that's where we fucked up with DevOps is we, as the operators and developers, did not do a good enough job marketing it within our businesses. And I think, sorry, anybody that has held this role in the past decade, but I also don't think that management over a lot of these DevOps teams that kind of failed and ended up in this place where we have like DevOps teams or a DevOps role, like management didn't do their part. Right. Like they should have been advocating for these teams. They should have been getting budget. They should have been figuring out how to market it internally. And I feel like that's where we really failed with DevOps. We did not do enough. It was like, hey, we're doing a DevOps. We'll get some culture. We'll rub it on it. Everything's going to be fantastic soon. And like 15 years later, I don't know, 50% of teams that are doing DevOps are in a very bleak space. And that's not me pulling a number out of my ass. That's the DORA report. So go read the entire thing. Don't stop at page 5 because it gets real fucking scary after that. But I feel like we're getting there with like platform engineering, and like IDP is one of these terms that I think is facilitating that problem. Like people don't know what it means, and they're starting to treat it as like a synonym for self-service. And like a portal won't give you self-service, and a platform might. But like, what is self-service? And I feel like this is one of the part that really drives me wild is for a lot of people, self-service is simply the ability to deploy your app on your own, right? And some platforms, that's it. It's like, hey, you can deploy a Helm chart, and it's like, okay, well, kubectl can deploy a Helm chart. Like, what value are you providing? There's an interface on top of it, right? Like, self-service is what I need as a developer to do my job. Right. And like there's levels of abstraction here. If you go way back to the Heroku days, say it's the best self-service portal any of us have ever seen. Right. As a developer, I was doing DevOps at the abstraction that was given to me. I was able to develop and operate my software on top of the Heroku platform. And like we're all trying to recreate this now at scale on top of the cloud. Right. And so when we think about self-service, I don't think you can just think about it as like, hey, was the developer able to easily deploy their app? Because guess what? Our apps aren't just our code anymore. Like that was true 15 years ago when we were deploying a big monolith or like a couple of monoliths on some VMs. But today, like our apps are 20, 30% cloud services, right? It's like my app calls SQS and SNS and EventBridge, and it uses all these cloud services that are now a part of my app. That is the developer's responsibility, right? If a developer has to say, hey, I need to do some queuing stuff, let me ask an ops person for an SQS queue. Like you're right back to where we were 20 years ago, like begging somebody in a data center to install something for you, right? Like there's some parts of the cloud, there's some services in the cloud that are just extremely dev centric, and devs need to have control over those, right? And totally. If your self-service doesn't include like being able to get cloud resources, I question whether or not you're really giving self-service, right? And there's a lot of these platforms and portals that are in this space where it's like, hey, you can use the platform to do whatever you want, and it's great. You can self-serve, and then you're like, well, I need an EventBridge, and it's like, well, fuck. Then you're gonna have to install Terraform. You need to go buy a Digger, right? Like one of my other buddies does Digger, right? You have to buy Digger, and like now you have two tools, which is fine, but like now you have two things again, right? We're getting back into tool sprawl. But you told me when you sold me your platform, I was getting self-service, and what you really sold me was self-service for a couple of things, and then
Right. Yeah.
figuring it out with another tool when I kind of
Very
hit the edges of
narrowly
this,
scoped.
right? Yeah, but then when we think about it, it's like, okay, well, what is self-service? One of the other big complaints you see frequently in DevOps is like this idea that developers just get to run free, have a blast, write code. Hey, I'm building business value. I have so much fun. And at 2 a.m., it's DevOps' team, like responsibility to like keep the site up. Oh, something's broken, right? Like real self-services, being able to build a platform that you can then extend to your developers where they can develop, they build it, they run it, right? Like if the developers aren't answering calls at 2 a.m., they're not the triage layer. Like I would also say you haven't got the self-service. If at 2 a.m. something's broken and another team's pulled in, like that's not self-service, that's white glove service.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's somebody else doing your work for you. And like that's going to create burnout on that team. It's going to get you right back to this like conflict between dev and ops. And so a lot of these platforms, they don't address day two, right? And like day one and day zero happens, right? You're planning some stuff. Day one happens, you're deploying some stuff. Day two, that's the last day. There is not a day three or a day four. Day two goes on for the rest of time, right? And so if you're not able to like maintain the life cycle of the resources and the apps that you built and understand the health and understand the FinOps, like then are you really doing self-service?
Right.
I'd say no, right? And so like that's what's a little concerning about like all the IDPs out there. I think like one, they're conflated with self-service and they're not truly like giving you self-service. They're giving you some self-service and the rest of it's up to you, right? And then the other thing I think is concerning about this is, and I know there's a lot of people that could agree with that sentiment. Like this isn't me like thought leadering something. Like that's a consensus like people are coming to. I think the thing that I believe and we believe that's a bit different in the IDP space is when we think about like, you know, oh, Heroku, I can just go deploy my app there. This is great. Or like Vercel, I can go deploy my app there. This is great. Now these internal teams are trying to build these platforms that feel like Heroku, feel like Vercel, give these people these great experiences, which is great. You should be seeking good DevX. But what's really funny is part of the, like, I don't think we reflect on like the mess that we're in, right? Like we've gotten to this point where our scale is massive, even for early stage companies, right? Like your customers expect shit to be as responsive as if TikTok or Facebook made it, even if you're in business for like a day.
5
right?
nines and
like we have higher uptime requirements than we did a decade ago, right? And so with this like different perspective of like our consumers, whether they're business consumers or end user consumers, like people want more out of our apps. Like we're doing a lot more earlier, and where you see us at today is like we're shifting a lot of our engineering efforts onto other people by buying cloud services, right? This is the world that we're in now. We're not running big monoliths on a VM. We're using 10, 20, 30 different cloud services so that we can spend more time building business value by offloading that SQS work, the EventBridge work, the, you know, all this other stuff that we don't care about, like onto another organization, right? And so the mess that we're in is we need all these cloud services. My team, as the backend team, works very differently than the front end team. Works very differently than the ML team, works very differently than maybe like the data sciences team or like, you know, like the team doing like data processing, right? Like these teams all work differently. And even like on your backend teams, they can work very differently. Somebody who might be running, you know, a Java and Gradle app versus I'm running an Elixir app or I'm running some Go microservices. These teams have different tools that they're using, have different languages with very different requirements, and they have very different scopes. Like front end and Jamstack is very different than running some deployments on Kubernetes, right? And so this idea of we're going to build an IDP internally that serves all of our teams is fucking nuts. Like you're and the idea that you can build an IDP as a company and sell it to 100 different organizations, it's like, yo, those organizations' teams don't even deploy software the same way, let alone all these organizations, right? And I think the big difference for us, sorry, this is not a Mass Driver ad, but like the big difference for us is like our concept has always been like self-service through infrastructure as code, and letting operations kind of package up that expertise. Like that's where this bundling idea came from originally, and let developers grab what they need and connect it together. So if you're in Massdriver, every single project is an IDP. It's not the operations team or DevOps or platform teams going off and thinking through like, what is the thing that my developers need? You think about all the services that you want to support in the cloud. You package it up with your expertise and you put it in the service catalog, and developers come along and say, hey, you know what? Like my team's IDP, I'm going to define what's in it because we know what we need best. And they just grab stuff that's kind of sanctioned and guardrailed by the ops team or platform team, DevOps team, sysadmins, like whatever you want to call those folks, and you get back to work. It's not 2 months of talking about like what is in the right MVP or TVP or whatever they're calling it now, finished viable product, minimum viable product. Let's take the stuff that we're going to support as an organization that we know how to troubleshoot, we've read the white papers on, package it up and let people just grab whatever they need, right? And I think that's like our big shift on like IDP is like, I don't think that this is a common like touted number, like 80% of your workload should be going through your IDP. It's like, no, 100% of your workload should be going through an IDP. You should be able, like, IDPs is cattle. Like, that's where I'm at. IDPs is cattle. Like, they should be super easy. And if you get to a point where like, this one kind of sucks, like we made some mistakes here, it's like, okay, clone it, like make the changes that you need, like move your workloads there. And like, like, don't be like shackled to this thing that you thought about for 2 months and feel like you just are stuck in the land of like sunk cost fallacies. Like, oh, like, well, the platform team spent 2 months like thinking about how like we should run Jamstack on Kubernetes, and it's like, I don't know, maybe your front end team just wants to run on Vercel, like, and that's fine. Or maybe they want to run their Jamstack stuff on, you know, S3 and some Lambdas, like that's fine. Like, you shouldn't be like pushing these people towards this like one like central blob of an idea of like how to run stuff. So I agree on the IDP front. Sorry, I'm long-winded, everybody. Welcome to talking to me. But yeah, seeing so many IDPs there where it's just like, hey, we're a UI that sits on top of Kubernetes, and like you can deploy some apps and like a couple of cloud services. Like, it doesn't feel like enough for like where a lot of organizations are. I think the things I saw there that I was pretty excited about, it was cool to see the Ollama booth like right over next to us. I was disappointed that there wasn't like a company. They were just like the open source thing. They're like, no, we're just the open source booth. I was like, oh, cool. I thought you guys like had like a product going. Maybe they do secretly. So that was fun. I got my Ollama sticker on the bottom of my laptop because I'm out of sticker space on the top of it. I did enjoy seeing Honeycomb. I always love going over there because they have the funniest stickers. But I think like the stuff that I saw that was most exciting. So like I'm bearish on AI. So like I don't know, everything
for DevOps.
Yeah, I was like, okay, that's cool. Like, good luck solving that production outage when nobody knows how it works. Call me. Yeah, I mean I feel like that's just like a lead gen source for DevOps consultants. But the things I saw that were pretty exciting, I think has to be, I mean, there was definitely a couple of cool products, but I think the thing that was most exciting to me, and we saw this at reInvent as well, is the number of people, and I gotta say this because like we're involved in OpenTofu, and I think it's super important, and I think this is an important distinction for us to make. Like, we weren't caught up in the licensing issues with OpenTofu, with Terraform.
Right.
We compete with Terraform, we compete with HashiCorp's Waypoint product, and so they actually made a cutout for companies like us where we compete with one product but we're built on the other, right? Now, there's a lot of other people that are involved in OpenTofu where they were direct competitors to Terraform Cloud, and so they were impacted. So why are we involved in this? Well, I hate bullshit. Like, that's why. I was just like, this is a bullshit move by a big company throwing rocks at a bunch of startups, right? And so, like, that's why we got involved in OpenTofu originally, but also because, like, Terraform is unfortunately or fortunately become the lingua franca of the cloud. It's what we all use, right? And so it's kind of important that it is vendor agnostic. And it is important that it isn't a foundation. Like, the question I'm always frequently asking, especially with the Redis thing that we saw recently, is like, what is the point in which an open source project becomes so important to the community at large that it should no longer be in the hands of a sole company, right? And like this is part of like the branding issue with us releasing this tool is we're trying to figure out the same things. Like we're not, I don't know, I hope that nobody thinks we're full of shit, but like one of the things we're trying to figure out is how do we get this tool out here where other people, including our competitors, can use it and nobody feels like it's just a thing that a company is doing for whatever reasons, right? Like, I think that the work that we're doing,
pigeonholing and cornering the market and getting rich off.
And so felt the same thing about OpenTofu. And what was really exciting about KubeCon was the OpenTofu. So it was an OpenTofu day at KubeCon. It was at capacity. That's cool.
That's super cool.
The State of OSS report recently showed that OpenTofu adoption has exceeded Pulumi. Like 22% of people that are using IAC are using HashiCorp Terraform. 8% of people, there's people that are responding to this survey, right? 8% of people that are doing IAC today are using OpenTofu, and 8% are using Pulumi, and 40-something% are still using Ansible, right? So we all got a long way to go. But like the sheer excitement around it, I think we ran out of OpenTofu shirts the first day, right? No, we ran out of DevOps.
Day two.
Day two. DevOps is bullshit.
That was
day one. And that is actually probably my favorite thing is I thought KubeCon people were going to hate the DevOps is bullshit shirts, and they loved it. And like that might just be our revenue stream. Maybe that's how I'll get to Series A, is just sell DevOps and bullshit shirts because they fly. But like how excited people were, but then the conversations, like, because the conversations were interesting. And this was something to me, like, I feel like I don't know. I feel like in like a CEO role, like my views have changed a bit than just in like a pure engineering role. But the number of developers, which is like they're an individual contributor that are actually thinking about licensing terms of open source software, like that was exciting to me, right?
Yeah.
Because I feel like a lot of times, like we'll see a library, install it, get going, right? And like I had to suffer through this when we did our fundraising round because we had to like, go through all the licensing terms of all the software we use, and it's like 4,000 open source packages or something like that, right? And so like I think about this stuff all the time, but like seeing other developers like actually care about licensing on top of all the other shit that they have to worry about and like actually be concerned about it, and excited for this becoming a part of this foundation where like you now know that you can build on top of this technology without worrying about I have one thing to worry about, but you don't have to worry about some organization kind of forcing you to buy their tool, which is effectively what HashiCorp was doing. You can use us to run Terraform Cloud, or you can figure it out yourselves, right? But that I think was the most exciting thing, was just like seeing people like excited about the fact that like this tool, which we've gotten a lot of criticism around it, that we're not moving fast enough. It's like, we're at parity with the thing that's released. We got a couple more features than it has, and we've had to go through foundation application and build a registry on top of it. Like we've done a shitload in like the past 6 months, but like seeing people like have that excitement for the project, hearing people that have already like migrated their production systems from Terraform to OpenTofu, like I was like, this is awesome. Like that people are actually excited about it. So I think that was my biggest takeaway, was that like the time I spent on it hasn't been wasted in the past 6 months, which is great.
No,
but
not
then
at
people
all.
are excited about it. So that's fun.
Yeah, no, there was definitely a lot of excitement around OpenTofu. That was definitely our second most popular shirt.
Yeah. Massdriver shirts were third most popular.
Yep. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
That's all right.
Yeah. I mean, cool. I was just happy I didn't have to pack home those DevOps is bullshit shirts, man. I packed. When we went to, I'll put a video on Twitter later, but I packed 150 pounds. My wife wants me to get these shirts out of the garage. I fat fingered an order. I accidentally ordered 50,000 of our stickers. I meant to order 500. And I think I also fat fingered our shirts. I've got like 12 more boxes of like swag shirts in the garage. And she's like, you got to get this shit out of here. So for KubeCon, I packed 150 pounds of t-shirts into like a single like roller case, not like a suitcase. It's like, it kind of looks like that the cases you see people move like music equipment in.
Yeah.
I packed so much into it. When I got to the airport was like, this is too heavy to go on the plane. And I was like, what do you mean? I don't. This doesn't like I'm at the ticket counter. I'm like, what do you mean it's too heavy to go on the plane? It's a fucking plane. Like there's a lot of people in that plane that are heavier than this. Like, what do you mean? And they're like, yeah, like Paris specifically limits baggage sizes coming in to 70 pounds. You can't even go up to 100. And so I'm sitting there with like 150 pounds of stuff. Like, how do I get this to Paris? So I did some friggin' suitcase magic and got all my bags down to 70 pounds. I had to throw away 20 pounds of t-shirts, which sucked. But then once I got to Paris, I was like, these shirts all must go. I do not want to. So I ended up flying home with only 30 pounds of shirts.
That's a
cool.
pretty significant drop, yeah.
I don't know how many shirts we got rid of, but we got 90 pounds worth of shirts got rid
of. If you started with 150, you tossed away 20, and then we gave away 100 pounds of shirts.
Yeah.
That's a lot of shirts.
Yeah. A lot of shirts.
I think our next conference we need to bring way more DevOps is bullshit shirts.
Maybe
We've had 2 conferences in a row now that they were the first shirt to be gone.
Yeah, we are gonna put them. We are gonna put a like store.massdriver.cloud. We're gonna put that up there, and so we'll have them up there, and we'll probably have like free coupon codes that people can use to get them and whatnot. But
yeah, that'd be really cool.
Yeah, because the amount of people who like sent me an email and were like, "Hey, when you guys make more of these shirts, send me one." I'm like, "Okay, it'll be easier if I just do it through Shopify."
Yeah, no, that'd be super easy, and that'll get them right out of your garage too.
I know, right?
We should do that. That's actually a really good idea to do a store.
I have them every once in a while. It's not all bad ideas coming out of here. Yeah.
Well, we are 7 minutes over time.
Yeah.
But that was fun. That was catching up on KubeCon. A little bit of a deep dive into the open source tool that you, Chris, and Dave are in the middle of building, which is gonna be super excited. I'm looking forward to getting my hands on it and trying it out myself. And I will be sure to be doing webinars on it, probably some docu videos describing how to use the tool, different cool things about it. So I'm super excited about that. But yeah,
can I cross promo a webinar while we're here?
Do it.
Is that cool?
Yeah,
I'll drop it in the chat. Well, we got a bunch of them coming up. I should probably promote Chris's, but I'm gonna promote mine. So if you're doing if you got stuff in the cloud today and you don't have infrastructure as code for some of your stuff, I'm going to be doing a webinar in about 2 weeks. We'll be generating Terraform code, but it'll run with OpenTofu or HashiCorp Terraform. So I'm going to be going through just like different strategies for like how to actually do this, like a quick overview of like some of the tools, because there's like 5 or 6 tools in the space. And then the one thing I do use AI for is grunt work, which is what it should be for. So we'll be showing off a tool I made called Terraformist. There's a Terraformer, so I made Terraformist.
Sweet.
So we'll be showing this off, which is just an AI tool that like helps you catalog and bring all this stuff together in Terraform modules and then like produce better Terraform code than the stuff that kind of comes out of Terraformer. So we'll be showing that off and open sourcing that. So if you want to come, pop on by.
Very nice. Yeah. Can you send me that link in Slack or private chat so I can post it to LinkedIn? The StreamYard chat does not post to LinkedIn.
What?
Yeah, so I'll have to get it on there.
We'll have to ask them to add that feature. I'm sure they'll tell us, they'll put it on their roadmap.
Yeah, it's kind of weird that's not in here, but it is what it is. All right, so just put that in. Wait. So yeah, thanks for hanging out and talking about the new tool and stuff.
Thanks for pinging me and letting me know that I was late.
Anytime. Happy to do it.
I was trying to find power, and I'm actually down to like 3% battery. I'm like, oh crap! I gotta find an outlet in this field. All
right, you go do that, and then I'll wrap up.
Yeah, awesome.
All right, thanks, man.
Thanks for coming by, everybody.
See you later. So yeah, this wraps up this month's episode of Office Hours. Just as a recap, the Office Hours is meant to be a time where You guys can come hang out, ask questions, post comments, start conversations, things like that. If not, then I'll typically have somebody random, usually Corey. We'll try to include Chris and Dave as well, just talking about random things. But office hours is meant to be a time for you guys to get answers to questions that you have, whether it's involving Massdriver, involving platform engineering, DevOps, the industry, OpenTofu, things like that. That's really what the time here is scheduled for. So feel free to come back next month. We will continue to host these the first Wednesday of every month. And yeah, feel free to just chat with us. We'd love to have you. Thanks for stopping by, guys. Peace.